Something came from Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore, 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 Baltimore.
Welcome to Something Came from Baltimore today. My name is Gouker, and I am so happy for three reasons, and we'll get into that. Just remember, Something Came from Baltimore is a jazz, blues, R&B podcast and radio show, and it's not really about Baltimore. In fact, I got three reasons why it's not. Number one, today is a Why Is It Good episode, and that's where we ask artists, musicians, and tastemakers to pick an album of their choice and then explain to us why it is good. And number two, we're speaking to Sidney Jacobs. It's a new friend of the podcast. Sidney Jacobs is a premier jazz vocalist and had the opportunity to chat with him about his excellent 2022 solo recording, If I Were Your Woman. Now, Sidney Jacobs is also a current member of the legendary Fifth Dimension. That is number two. Now, number three, the album he chose is the 1986 Triumph from Peter Gabriel titled So. And I love doing Why Is It Good because I learn things, but it's also even better when I enjoy the album ahead of time too. I am a big fan of Peter Gabriel and the So album. So it's going to be a really passionate conversation. So why is So good? We are going to find out in a minute. But first, don't forget to subscribe to Something Came from Baltimore. We are on 18 platforms that I'm aware of, plus YouTube. It's Deezer and iTunes and Amazon and BocX and Spotify. It's all there. Also, check out my sister podcast called The Beatles Come To America, where I have the honor to chat with the Beatle Guru, Brooke Halpin, and we review all the U.S. album releases. We are getting ready to chat with Sidney Jacobs about that Peter Gabriel recording called So. Let's listen to a sample from Sidney Jacobs from the album If I Were Your Woman. It's that Barbra Streisand classic, On a Clear Day.
On a clear day, oh, how it will astound you at the glow of your being, outshines every star. You feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. On a clear day, on a clear day, you can see forever and ever and ever.
Sidney Jacobs, welcome to Something Came from Baltimore. This is something a little different. We had you on earlier to talk about your album, one of my favorite albums of the year last year, If I Were Your Woman. And I totally recommend everyone, please stop and take a listen to it. You're going to fall in love with it. This is Why Is It Good? We have the artists talk about one album that they totally love, and we kind of go through track by track and kind of explain why is it good. And we went through some topics, but what did you decide on?
The album was Peter Gabriel So, 1986.
Are you familiar with Peter Gabriel before he went solo or anything about him?
So as we were kind of talking the other day, my memories of Peter Gabriel were prior to that, but I think this album made me notice who he was. I knew the name. And so this just kind of put him on the map and blew my mind just from a listening point of view.
He was a personal favorite of mine and my friends. So with this interview, I have to shout out to Tom, Griff, and to Ken and Brian, wherever you're at. I'm a little older than you. So we were way into Genesis before Phil Collins came in. We were really interested in that art rock and the lyrics. And it seemed to, like a lot to decipher. His last album with them was The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway in 1974. He leaves in 1975. First album is Gabriel 1. It was in 1977. It stalled at number 38 on our charts. Had Salisbury Hill, which is like on every commercial and TV show in the world. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it has legs. The second album is also called Peter Gabriel. That stalls at 45 in 1978, and that had a hit with DIY. My favorite album of his is Gabriel 3, which is they call the Melt Face. That's from 1980. It had it stalled at number 22. You got Security in 82 with Shock the Monkey, Plays Live at 83, the Birdie soundtrack, and then that's it. Like, so blew up, and then it's over. Like, so I remember as a Peter Gabriel like loyalist, we really want him to be famous, but then he came too famous, and then it was like, oh, I don't want him to be famous anymore. Like, it's that weird crossing the line. I want everyone to love him, but don't love him anymore. That kind of thing.
It's ownership, man. And you're like, well, this is my guy. Yeah, I had the same, I went through the same cycle with Al Jarreau, when I discovered him, it was like 77, 78, and he hadn't really blown up. And I was like, oh man, this guy's amazing. And then he blew up, and I'm like, I got to move on. Everybody knows about him. And then also the arc, when fame does hit it can often, maybe not so much with Gabriel, but it can often change how you're approaching your writing and what your intent is with your writing, because now you're growing an audience. And so is like I'm not a Peter Gabriel expert, but I do know that it's probably one of his most commercial albums.
Definitely. Yeah. That has some little theories. We'll get into the album. But
okay.
I got theories going on.
Yeah, I love it.
This was a big album. This is like 5 times platinum. Where all those previous albums stalled. The Birdie soundtrack was just something he did in between. He was able to hook up with Daniel Lanois.
Yeah,
and that's
that was a game changer.
Yeah, that he used him to get into to do so. And Daniel Lanois did the Joshua Tree and Achtung Baby for U2, but he's really known for being really moody, atmospheric, kind of guitar like a sway in the guitar sound, but also very like drum oriented. Like there was big drums are always kind of mixed high in his things. He also did Dylan and Neil Young and Emmylou Harris, Robbie Robertson, all great albums from them. So he had a style, and then it seems like he really fine tuned it on So that's kind of one of my theories. Also, it was on the Geffen label, and the Geffen label was just created, and they took seasoned, aging stars like Donna Summer, Elton John, Neil Young, and Peter Gabriel, and I have also John and Yoko. Cher, they had Joni Mitchell. Guns N' Roses did really well for them, and so did Nirvana. So they did have some hits, but they had a lot of aging artists that just weren't hitting. Geffen was really upset with the fact that he wasn't getting hits off of these artists. And that was that weird thing with Neil Young where he sued him because he wasn't making commercial albums. That was 1983. So
okay.
You got the Plays Live album, which is a filler, and it stalled at 44. You got Birdie soundtrack in 85. It's at 162. He's once a hit off of Peter Gabriel. He's like, you know what? We're really like, we got your contract, we got your money, you have carte blanche on what you want to do, but we just need a hit. And I think that was something that was mentioned to him, and I think he responded to that. So with Daniel Lanois, with the urging of having a hit record or making like commercial sounds, like I would say, this album is kind of like art pop. It's arty, but it's very pop. So.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it kind of straddles that fence, quite beautifully, actually.
In a great way. The other part is that, it was CDs came into, the power in 1982. The zenith was 1989. The peak was 2002. And the quality of a CD, like a well-produced CD, really intrigued people. Like the So album, Back in the High Life, Roll With It, Songs from the Big Chair, In Excess, the Kick album. Everyone had these albums. Like they're like, and they just sounded good on CD. Now people complain that maybe the way they're mixed now is not appropriate, but boy, did we love them then. And I can't really complain. When you put that So album on, it's so sonically rich, and it sounded so good on CD that it was a part of that intoxication
Yeah,
piece. They're my theories.
you're absolutely right. No, those are well more thought out than my theory. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that was one of the things, just as a kind of an adolescent music listener, I guess at that time it was as far as my ears, it was the sonic quality that stood out. Like I could hear everything right at a time when I was learning how to listen to music deeper than just the lyrics and the melody. And so this represents that to me. And then, of course, I just put it on, as we were talking about it not too long ago. I'm like, man, this sounds tremendous. I mean, the fullness of the sound. And also during that time, there was this Yamaha DX kind of sound that was permeating everything, flock of seagulls and all this kind of stuff. All great stuff. But then when you listen to this, they were using organic sounds that really our ears hadn't been attuned to at that time. Yeah. And now we're used to these sounds. But for me, I don't know if it's a didgeridoo or not, but at the beginning of Sledgehammer, that,
yeah,
I've never heard anything like that. I didn't know what it was. And the blending of that was just tremendous.
It's the Shibuki bamboo flute. How about that?
Wow, man.
Gabriel has a Real World label where he seeks out like international artists. The label still exists. And so he is always up for organic and world music, especially world beat. It's funny because it's a small album. Like you do recordings in your own house. And he's using like drum tracks that he really likes.
Yeah.
He threw the synth in, the keyboards, and he almost have the album, and he has some guest stars just kind of filling in the rest of it. But I mean, that's kind of what people do now, like today in their house, right? So yeah, it's almost like, wow, he is so advanced. Like this is way ahead of what we have now. He saw the future. It was 3 people working on this album in a barn outside of his house.
Wow.
It was just like they worked on it really hard. They tweaked it. Bang, you got this amazing album. That's what people do all the time in their own homes now.
When listening to this on the production front and, as you're saying, just the personnel front, but just the vision of the music, it's apparent that he was like well ahead of his time, but it was still accessible, and that's the whole thing. Sometimes cats are too far ahead and the majority of folks can't really access what they're doing. But I didn't find that with Peter Gabriel at all. So this album anyway.
We're going to get almost into the album, but I got that little history. I always love like Rolling Stones, like top 500 albums. I scroll through them and through the years, 2003, this album So was ranked 187. In 2012, it was 187, which is kind of crazy. It's still like a top echelon album. And then in 2020, it's 297. So it's pretty amazing, to be in that 500 albums. And also, we're almost like 35 years later and it still resonates with people currently. It's very impressive.
It's incredibly impressive. And then also the scope of the music on this album, the different styles that are being covered. The sensitivity.
I think one thing that Peter Gabriel is way into its analysis. Obviously, he's been through a therapist. I pulled some lyrics out. Sounds like he's doing a lot of self-love stuff or self-care stuff now, because the lyrics are, I come to you with defenses down, with the trust of a child. Like that is a therapy line. I went through all these songs and looked at the lyrics. I'm like, there is a lot of self-care in this. Which a lot as a male back then you don't say that or sing it, but he does it with such conviction. The only thing else before we get into the album is that it was up for the best album of the year for the Grammys. It lost to Graceland. On that list was Control by Janet Jackson, the Broadway album by Barbra Streisand, and Back in the High Life Again.
Graceland at that time was probably my least favorite of those albums.
Really?
But it also had like a consistent through line musically. you know. And I also think that it was marketed a bit better than the other albums, except for maybe Janet Jackson's Control. So all the stuff that we were naive about at the time, but now we understand what marketing does. And also a great album as well. But
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, the fact that Peter Gabriel is really like a nothing to American charts to get a
yeah.
nomination for an album that had 4 to 5 singles off of it, it's impressive. I mean, obviously everyone took a look at it. So we go right to the Red Rain. What I was saying before is that they invited Stuart Copeland play the cymbals and the percussion in it. You can hear it really high in the mix.
Yes.
The self-care language that I was talking about is I come to you defenses down with the trust of a child, which is an insane, amazing lyric along with the rest of the album.
Yeah.
To return again and again. Just let the red rain splash you. Let the rain fall on your skin. I come to you, defenses down, with the trust of a child.
And you can hear it. It's the drum programming, the synth programming, keyboards. When I heard it as a child with the Red Rain, I'm like, oh, this is like a nuclear war thing. It's war. It's unnecessary death. It's like a dream of an apocalypse of some sort. When I read the lyrics today, I'm like, I don't really know what this is saying. It doesn't stand for anymore. It's not that clear. It's very open into interpretation.
Yeah, for me, it was the sonic boldness of Copeland's drumming, and that sustained chord, just from a musician's point of view, not from a lyrical point of view. I'm a singer, but I'm always thinking about like what's happening underneath it. And then with all of the atmospheric guitaring going on, yeah, I mean, man, it just, listening to it right now, it blows my mind. So when I was 21 or 22 back in 86, it just kind of cracked open my ears in a way that I didn't understand, like pop music could be like this. Mm-hmm. I was used to a certain structure of music. When you go back and listen to 80s dance songs and stuff, and then you have this song coming through.
Peter Gabriel's voice is not like a top 40 radio sound. It's deep and resonates a little more. So I think that when he's singing Red Rain, like you buy into it. I mean, his passion level, the way he sang, definitely
committed.
Very committed to this. And that's the true selling point to this whole album.
Yeah, the whole album. And when I listen to it, the first description that I think of for his voice is gospel.
Yeah.
Because it's a spiritual commitment that he's making. He's like full throated on the song, especially, at the beginning, he opens it up. And then at the end, when he's whining and, crying out, it just seems like a gospel song to me. That was the spirit of it.
I see it. Red rain coming down. Red rain is pouring down. Red rain is coming down all over me. I'm bathing in red rain coming down. Red rain is coming down. Red rain is coming down all over me. I'm begging you. Red rain coming down. Red rain coming down.
Yeah, that's awesome. I never thought of it that way. But, we go right into the second song, which is Sledgehammer. Totally made famous by the video, the creative video that came out. It got to a point where, I really hated the song because I heard it so much. But,
right.
But listening to it, I was like, wow, where's this scratchy guitar? Like going underneath the whole thing. I said, I really love it. I'd say that you could strip the whole lyrics off and roll with it by Steve Winwood. Kind of could be very similar to it. Maybe with the tempo and stuff, it's very similar. He wanted this to sound like an Otis Redding song, which I didn't really hear the comparison until I did my notes. and he reached out to Wayne Jackson, a horn player who played with Otis Redding, and he's a part of the horn section.
Okay, that's the other prominent.
Yeah. That I thought was really weird to the song is that there's a break in the middle and that Kabuchi bamboo flute does a solo. And that is so weird. That is so, like the intro.
That's just a boss, man. That is boss to do that, right?
Yeah, you would either expect maybe a horn solo, a guitar solo. You don't expect a break with a flute. About sexual innuendo. Again, I read the lyrics. I felt they were kind of ambiguous about that. A sledgehammer, you kind of get the idea. Okay, maybe sledgehammer. I get that. At the end of the song, he goes, "Show for me, I will show for you." I really thought he meant chauffeur, like I chauffeur in a car. Looking at the lyrics, and I know I had the album, I had the CD. So when it came to lyrics, I finally read them and went, "Show for you." I thought it was chauffeur,
right?
Show for you, like I will carry you along. I don't know,
and it didn't matter to me what it was about.
Doesn't matter,
Lyrically, it didn't matter, man. I thought they were saying show for. I didn't even think about it. It wasn't chauffeur in my head. It was like show for me, but I didn't know what it meant. Yeah. And it didn't matter because it was like the gospel background vocals and the syncopation was great, and you just wanted to sing it. That's like,
definitely. It's more bluesier and funkier now. This intention of listening to it, like and saying, "Oh, I'm so sick of this song." But now that I listen to it, I'm like,
exactly.
Wow, there is a lot of stuff going on, and it's a pure blues song. It's great. All right, so we have "Don't Give Up." So what's your thoughts on that before I kind of go into notes?
And you're coming off of Sledgehammer, which is trying to break your face, and then you go to this tender, you talk about like self-care and therapy, and you go to the most vulnerable spot of maybe the male identity, and that's the ability to provide. And if I understand what the lyrics are, that's what I took from it. And Kate Bush saying, "Don't give up, don't give up." You're loved, and we love you, and you can just see this guy or this human being just shrinking because their self-esteem, doesn't allow them to do the thing that they're there to do, or they think they're there to do. It's a heartbreaking song, man. There's also some hope at the end, when you go into that reggae beat. Oh, that's so great, man. Don't give up, don't give up. Oh. Yeah. So there's like it took me to the kind of depths of, you know, depression and darkness, and then there's kind of like this glimmer of hope at the end,
Yeah.
which can be life, which is often life.
If Red Rain had a spiritual element, obviously Sledgehammer had a gospel vibe to it. This does too at the end.
Yeah.
Wow. Connection.
Yeah. Oh no, this album it's layered, you know, it's deep. And I also am a fan of changing tone in a song, especially in a tag like this, like putting on a tag that has a different harmonic, has a different rhythmic structure and even melody, and kind of riding with that. And, you know, it will be related to the song that just preceded it. I probably got that idea from this song.
He listened to the album in sequence, and it was very important for him to get the sequence right. He wanted to end with In Your Eyes, and he had problems with the length of an album. And then they fooled around with a CD. But that slow intro buildup is also, I think, done on purpose, you know, to change the concept. We just got out a heavy Sledgehammer, and now you got a little slower build up to Don't Give Up. They were looking at Dolly Parton as the female voice. And that is crazy to me, and I could hear it. You know,
I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear her singing that.
I think it would be more nurturing because Kate is a little more witchier vibe, and I think Dolly is a little more maternal. So for her saying that,
I can see that.
Yeah, I would say that would work. But I mean, Kate kills it. Yeah, the whole song was about the Margaret Thatcher time period. Had such high levels of unemployment.
Because of all the deregulation. Yes.
The Reaganization of their country. That's what the songs are for the people who are struggling to hang in there. And the self-care stuff is really all the Kate Bush stuff. Rest your head, you worry too much. It's going to be all right. When times get rough, you can fall back on us. Don't give up. It's totally a self-care song too.
Rest your head. You worry too much. It's gonna be alright. When times get rough, you can't fall back on us. Don't give up. Please don't give up.
Because of the theme and because of the approach to it, because it's so, you know, I'm looking here, I see they have like Prophet and Lynn and stuff, instrumentation going, but the song itself is very organic, and the theme is eternal, right? I mean, if that song were released today, if the market would allow it, people would instantly relate to it. You know, you got a gig economy now, right? But still, it's like life is tough, man. And you realize that the powers that be don't necessarily care about you as an individual as they're trying to push society forward, and you can be collateral damage. It's a perfect song. It's a perfect song to me.
This is a top 40 song. Don't give up, you know. And then you're like, wait a minute, this is pretty intense. So obviously, it really resonated with the people at that time, and it still does now. It's
cinematic, right? It could be a movie. You could see it being the theme song to a movie, a very dramatic movie, you know, but it has that kind of effect on the listener. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of music. Sequencing is so important. You know, I never realized I've had 3 albums now, and I think it's like you're trying to piece through line with it, both sonically and thematically. And it doesn't always work, but, you know, it definitely works here because we're hit hard between these first 2 tracks. And then, you know, he puts on the brakes. It like just takes you to a left emotional turn that the listener has to kind of adjust his perspective all of a sudden. Yeah. You're coming off a Sledgehammer.
Okay, that voice again. Okay, the self-help lyric. I get so scared.
Yeah.
Listen to the wind.
Honoring everything all we did and said. Still I hear that sharp tongue talking tangled words. I can sense
that voice again is that inner voice, your inner child, or your
Hear that voice
the
again.
voice inside of you that either makes you propel
Yes.
to greatness or can sabotage you. That's what that is.
Yes.
And he decided to
Yeah.
double track it, and you notice that the double track is not even, and it's not supposed to be done on purpose. It's done just to be a little off, because that's the voice inside your head. And I think it's very
Like a
cool.
dialogue.
Yeah.
I wanna be with you, I wanna be clear. Each time I try, it's the voice I hear. I hear that voice again.
You know, this is Peter Gabriel, man. This is a cat that's always gone left when everybody's gone right.
Yeah.
You have to have an internal compass. You got to know what you're trying to do and where you want to go with it. It makes total sense.
It's as a closer for the album, it's a little odd, but I think it's just a time consumption. And when you get the CD, it just flows naturally. I think they just kind of, you have to make a decision. Yeah. So this is the last song, and then we flip it over to side 2, and you have
Got
to
it.
start off with Mercy Street. We're flipping the album over, and it's Mercy Street.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm seeing a theme that we're talking about that I didn't notice before. Mercy Street, it seems like more of, almost a hymnal. It's a hymn,
Right.
and the overall theory is like redemption, feeling whole. There's a mist of it, so alive and alone.
Nowhere in the corridors of pale green and grey. Nowhere in the suburbs in the cold light of day. There in the midst of it, so alive and alone. Words support like bone, dreaming of Mercy Street. Where you're inside out. Of mercy in your daddy's arms again, dreaming of Mercy Street. Swear they moved that side, dreaming of mercy.
Anne Sexton wrote a poem. It's 45 Mercy Street. So it's kind of coming off of that. The percussion was recorded in Rio de Janeiro, and they ended up playing the percussion 10% slower than it was actually recorded, which gave it a more haunting effect. And they went along with it. So it's
wow. Yeah. Natural tape masking and delay, man. That's like pretty cool. Being able to slow things down and speed things up just incrementally always adds a little sonic wobble and flavor to it that you don't have in the original track. And if you're skilled at mixing and engineering, you can make it into a texture. The meaning of the song, it goes beyond what the lyrics say, right? I mean, you don't have to even understand the lyrics to understand what the song is telling us spiritually. It seems like the sister song to Don't Give Up to me.
Looking for mercy. Where you're inside.
Yeah.
Where you're inside out. Looking for mercy in your daddy's arms again.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That style of lyric writing, I'm so jealous of. Again, I was first introduced to it like Steely Dan with all of these analogies and allusions and like little fragments of memory and things like that, but all coming into a cohesive whole. And that's like, man, that's real lyric talent.
With the research is that he didn't feel like that he was so involved in the music that he didn't have the lyrics ready. and they really push.
Okay.
So these are last minute, like
Last minute lyrics. Okay.
and sometimes that becomes or more unconscious than conscious, is that you're writing from an unconscious part, and it gels, and you just go with it without really worrying a little about, does this make sense or whatever. It kind of it just kind of came out.
As a songwriter, not everything has to make sense, but also I can have an idea of what I meant when I wrote a song, and somebody else will listen to it and they have a completely different understanding of what it is.
Yeah.
Because it hits them, differently. So yeah, this is another perfect song. Should have won Album of the Year.
Hi there. I'm on my way, I'm making it. I've got to make it show, yeah.
This next song, Big Time, was such a jam at the time. It's talking about consumerism. It's talking about being a yuppie. It's talking about materialism. It's talking about like desiring things that are not really good for you, that not good for your soul. And then through this song, he's wondering, am I just as bad as everyone else because I want this stuff too? So it's like a self-awareness that he's equally as bad as what he's talking about in a fun way. Like belly's getting bigger, and my bank account.
Right.
My circumstance. I always thought it was look at my eyes that just dance. Look at my eyes, they just dance. It's look at my circumstance.
Circumstance, right.
Wow.
So you're at the concert going, look at my eyes.
You would never know. Everyone else is screaming it too. So
nobody would care. Yeah, they're saying the same thing.
And the bulge in my big, big, big. He says big 15 times. I counted it. So
big, 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 big. Again, is thematically it could be released today, right? And it's so, if we didn't have this kind of big drum era of music, if you release this, it would probably be a hit right now. People would go, what the heck's going on?
And I said that this could be the theme song to every single Michael J. Fox movie. And
I think it might have been. No, you're right. With the padded shoulders.
But he always had that consumerism, yuppie, like
totally.
Secret of My Success kind of vibe.
His name on the show, Michael, was it P. Keaton or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, you already said the briefcase. Yeah. No, this will be his theme song.
The next track is a layover from Gabriel 3. It's an interlude. It was supposed to go from one track to another, but Daniel Lanois really enjoyed it, kind of stretched it out more. And it's called We're Do What We're Told. It's a social psychologist. His name is Stanley Mulgrew. That's why it says Mulgrew's 37. It's
right. Tell me about that.
It's an obedience of citizens during time of war. And we do what we're told. We're told what to do. It's basically, talking about how, in times of stress, people make decisions that are less advantageous to themselves. So to avoid pain, I'll do whatever it takes. And if other people are in pain, I don't care. That kind of thing.
That's how we get fascist regimes.
Yeah.
Rising up.
It's a very timely song, isn't it?
Again, another very timely song. It's because it's always timely because this is just a human condition,
Yeah.
and humans need leaders, right? And if somebody rises up and said they're going to solve all your problems, it's easy to kind of let go of the little stuff as long as the trains run on time, at least for a while, and also in times of war. Yeah, you can't have everybody running all over the place. You got to be on the same page. Makes a lot of sense. It was. It's one of the reasons that and Earth, Wind, and Fire, their interludes that they would put in, like instrumental interludes that might break the mode of what you're listening to. For them, it was a lot of African sounds, and so I've always, done that on my albums, is like have interludes of just atmospheric music. This is one of those reasons that I do it.
Flying birds, excellent birds. Watch them fly.
There they go.
Falling snow.
They moved this around. This was a added track for the CD, which is this is the picture. Laurie Anderson had an album. If you remember her Oh Superman, her second album after that big breakout was 1984, Mr. Heartbreak. And this is the picture, Excellent Birds. On her album, it's called Excellent Birds. On this album, it's called This Is the Picture, in parentheses, Excellent Birds. The mixes are different. I prefer the Laurie Anderson one. And in this thing, you can hear a little of what it is. They said they couldn't, between the two of them, they couldn't figure out, which one they liked the best. So Peter Gabriel put on the one he liked the best on his album. She put the one that she liked on her album. And Niles Rodgers is the guitarist on this.
I gotta go. Okay, so I haven't heard her version of it.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, we're gonna play it for the audience. You'll get all of it.
Absolutely. I'll hear it when you put it out.
Flying birds, excellent birds. Watch them fly.
There they go.
If you want to laugh, the video is ridiculous. The video is just like low tech, and they're like, when you did art in the 80s, it's jarring motions is like considered art.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. So
that was really cool. Yeah. Those skip frames.
But at the same time, they were both convicted in it. So you were like, okay, well, I can laugh at this, but they seem to be really into it. So Excellent Birds. And we finish it off with In Your Eyes. It's loaded with like self-care lyrics. Without a noise, without my pride, I reach out from the inside. I mean, talk another.
Without a noise, without my pride, I reach out from the inside. In your eyes, the light, the heat.
Another gospel song, right?
Yes, very much so. I didn't think about this before we started talking, but in a sense, the two sides of this album kind of mirror each other. There's kind of sister songs, roughly on each side, right? So you could say Sledgehammer and Big Time. You could say, I would guess like Red Rain and In Your Eyes and Mercy Street and Don't Give Up. They're like mirroring each other in tone.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd never noticed that until now.
This is kind of about an unfinished church in Barcelona, Spain. That was his influence for it. The thing about In Your Eyes is that it hit top 40. It was a really nice hit. It never went away. So it was always on that B cycle. They kept on playing it. And then in 1989, It was in the movie Say Anything with the jam box with John Cusack. And it became
okay.
it was the highlight of that movie, and it became another top 40 hit again. And then,
yeah, man.
Then in 2001, Jeffrey Gaines is from Philadelphia area, and he did an amazing acoustic version of it, the acoustic and live, and his intensity of that song also made this song kind of go up the charts again.
When I want to run away, I drive off in my car. But whichever way I choose, I come back to the place.
It's timeless. It's like, I think In Your Eyes, out of all the songs that are amazing on this album, probably have the biggest legs that most people are like, oh, In Your Eyes is on this album. You know, like, yes, of course.
I think I would agree with that, actually. I mean, it certainly could be a song released today. It's that powerful.
Youssef Denour brought him in at the end. He's singing his native tongue of Senegal. It's the I'm going to screw this up, Wolof language. Yeah. And I saw him in concert for the So tour, and you know the Youssef has a really good album. There's an album called Set that I really liked. There's some other albums I listened to. He's great. However, he was dormant the tour, and then all of a sudden, In Your Eyes comes out as kind of like the final song or close to the final song, and bang, he comes out and starts singing his version of it. Blows the whole audience away because they had no idea he's going to be there. Let alone, he wasn't an opening act. He was just sitting there waiting for 2 hours to get on stage to do it. And the crowd goes crazy.
It's like a waste of his talents. Actually, you know, I would have slipped him in before.
It was a total shock.
Man, what a reward, man, for you guys.
And then they extended the outro because it got very world beat, a very African vibe, and you have him like singing, and it became more of a march.
You could spin that out forever, and Yasso Ndour's voice, it cuts right through your soul, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's another person. Like, you don't have to know what they're talking about for it to have an emotional effect on you.
Overall take on this album is that it's fantastic today. It's moody and atmospheric. I did mention that I felt that Gabriel definitely had a therapist going on. The drum samples created a world beat that was really fresh and new at the time.
Yeah.
And gave me a total hope that we were blending cultures a little more. Like we were getting, you know, they kept on saying one world, one love, one world is enough for all of us. And I kind of felt that in that late 80s to the A Tribe Called Quest time period, we were all
the world.
We were all blending together, and that kind of went away. But I mean, as a natural melting pot of all these different sounds and influences, it really worked. It worked really well.
Yeah, it's a timeless album. I don't know what more to say, man. I'm every time I listen to it now, I'm just like, oh, okay, he was teaching us so much. And you're right. You know, we were at a time where sounds were blending for the first time. So I was introduced to a whole set of sonic, you know, packages that I've never heard before from this album. And that's a rare thing to say. Even some of my favorite albums can't, you know, they're not introducing me to new sounds. They're not introducing me to new languages and voices. But So is well ahead of its time. And then So it's so far ahead of its time, but it's so succinct at the same time, and it's packaged so well. It's so well thought, and yeah, I'm glad we chose it.
There's a lot of hate on this album that they're re-reviewing the album again, and they're saying, well, it's not recorded properly, or we don't like that drum sound, or it's too synthy, or it feels a little hollow. And I disagree with all of it.
So yeah, I have a hard time in sports and in music comparing eras. Yeah. You know, it doesn't do you any good, because everything that happens now is built on the shoulders of what's happened before. And it's easy to look with modern eyes and say, well, they weren't doing that. And but you got to look with their eyes. And I was there, and I had eyes and ears at that time.
Definitely.
And this thing just came and cut through. It just came and cut through.
Yeah.
You know, so there'll always be folks who are criticizing, but I really got to watch criticism sometimes, because if it's not contextualized, then it's kind of useless, you know, especially when you're comparing something in 2022 or 2023 to something in 1986, and that ain't fair, man. Yeah, my friend, that was fun, man.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me today on Something Came from Baltimore, the Why Is It Good? Peter Gabriel Show.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for inviting me, man. It was a pleasure once again.
Why is it good? It's always a blast. Thank you, Sidney Jacobs, for spending an hour with me and talking about Peter Gabriel's So album. And we thank Peter Gabriel for releasing such an amazing, revolutionary recording. The show is over. Everyone have a great day.
Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.